The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Windsor Castle's courtyard. Royal Guard Thomas Bennet stood perfectly still at his post, eyes scanning the crowd of tourists gathering near the iron gates. 7 years he'd been doing this job. 7 years of watching, waiting, protecting. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. A woman in an expensive cream coat stood near the entrance, sunglasses hiding most of her face. Next to her, a little girl, no older than 4, wore a navy blue dress with white stockings. But it wasn't the outfit that caught Thomas's attention. It was the way the child moved. The woman whispered something. Immediately, the little girl straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and began walking with tiny, measured steps. Thomas had seen that walk before. Every royal guard had. It was Princess Charlotte's distinctive gait, the one she used during public appearances. His jaw clenched. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then the woman positioned the child for a photograph. Angling her so Windsor Castle loomed perfectly in the background. The little girl raised her hand and waved in a normal child's enthusiastic wave, but a slow, rotating gesture. Palm facing outward, fingers together. The exact royal wave. Thomas felt ice spread through his chest. This wasn't a game. This wasn't dress-up. This was something else entirely. Before we continue with what Thomas discovered next, if you love mysteries and emotional true stories like this, hit that subscribe button below. Trust me, you'll want to follow where this goes. The woman moved the girl to another spot, adjusting her dress, smoothing her hair with sharp, precise movements. The child stood frozen, hands clasped in front of her, head tilted at a slight angle. Thomas had seen Princess Charlotte stand exactly that way in dozens of official photographs. His hand moved to his radio. Something was very wrong here. The woman's phone was constantly raised, recording, photographing, capturing every angle. She circled the girl like a director filming a scene. Some tourists smiled, thinking it was cute. Others looked uncomfortable, whispering to each other. Thomas pressed the button on his radio. Supervisor 2 Gate 3, possible situation developing. The woman must have sensed the shift in attention. Her head turned sharply toward the guards. She grabbed the girl's hand and started gathering her things. Fast. But before they could leave, the child did something that made Thomas's heart stop. She looked directly at him. Even from 20 meters away, he could see it in her eyes. Not excitement, not joy. Not the carefree happiness of a child playing princess. Fear. The girl's lower lip trembled for just a second, before she caught herself straightening up again, that blank mask sliding back over her face. The woman yanked her arm harder than necessary, and they began moving toward the exit. Officer Rachel Chen appeared at Thomas's side within seconds. What have we got? Thomas kept his voice low and steady. That child has been trained to imitate Princess Charlotte. Every gesture, every pose, every expression. Rachel's face went pale. She lifted her radio immediately. Security. Need identification on a female adult and child leaving East Courtyard. Cream coat, sunglasses. Child approximately 4 years old. Navy dress. The woman was almost through the gate now, walking quickly but not running. Smart. Running would create a scene. The little girl struggled to keep pace, her small legs working double time. Nearly stumbling on the cobblestones, Thomas took a step forward, every instinct screaming at him to move. Then the woman made a critical mistake. She glanced back over her shoulder, directly at the guards watching her. For one brief moment, her sunglasses slipped down her nose. Thomas saw her face clearly. He knew exactly who she was. Officer Rachel Chen's hand froze on her radio. Thomas, are you certain? Thomas nodded, eyes locked on the retreating figures. Meghan Harlow. She was flagged 8 months ago for appearing at 3 different royal events in 2 weeks. The name hit Rachel like a punch. The security files flooded back into her mind. Meghan Harlow, 34, no criminal record but a documented obsession with the royal family. They'd monitored her, tracked her movements, but she'd never actually broken any laws. She had every right to visit public royal sites until now. Rachel asked, her voice tight. Not in any of our files, Thomas replied. We need to stop them. Rachel pressed her radio again. All units, detain woman in cream coat at East Gate. Approach with caution. Child present. But Meghan was already through the outer gate, disappearing into the thick afternoon crowd of tourists. Dozens of people moved in every direction, cameras raised, voices overlapping. The perfect cover. Thomas stepped down from his post. Rachel signaled 2 more guards to follow. They moved through the crowd quickly, but carefully, not wanting to cause panic among hundreds of civilians. 30 meters ahead, the cream coat flashed between bodies. The little girl's hand was locked in Meghan's grip. Then the child stumbled, her shoe catching on uneven pavement. She fell hard to her knees. Meghan jerked her up violently. Too violently. Several tourists turned to stare. An elderly woman frowned deeply. A man with a camera lowered it, concern spreading across his face. Thomas closed the distance. 20 meters? 15. Meghan knew she was being followed now. She pulled the girl against her side, whispering urgently in her ear. The child's face went completely blank, that trained emotionless expression returning instantly. Like flipping a switch. Miss Harlow. Rachel's voice carried authority without aggression. We need to speak with you. Meghan stopped walking. For 3 long seconds, Thomas thought she might bolt. Her entire body tensed. Her grip on the girl's hand tightened until the child visibly winced. But she was surrounded guards on 3 sides. Tourists watching, phones potentially recording. Slowly, Meghan turned around. She smiled. It was the kind of smile people use when they know they're being watched. Perfect, practiced, empty. Is there a problem, officers? We were just leaving. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your visit today, Rachel said calmly, taking 1 step closer. I'm a tourist, Meghan replied smoothly. Like everyone else here. I have every right to be here. Thomas's eyes dropped to the little girl. Up close, the resemblance was even more disturbing. Her hair had been cut and styled to match Princess Charlotte's exactly the same length, the same slight wave. The dress, the shoes, the small bow clipped in her hair, everything identical to outfits the princess had worn in recent published photographs. This wasn't admiration. This was replication. What's your daughter's name? Rachel asked gently, crouching down to the child's eye level. Meghan's smile cracked slightly. That's none of your business. I'm just being friendly, Rachel continued, keeping her voice soft and warm. She looked directly at the girl. Hello, sweetheart. My name is Rachel. What's your name? The child's mouth opened. But before any sound could escape, Meghan squeezed her hand hard. The girl's mouth snapped shut. Her eyes dropped immediately to the ground, her small body going rigid. Thomas felt his stomach twist. That wasn't normal. That wasn't a shy child with a protective mother. That was fear-based obedience. She's shy, Meghan explained quickly, her voice just a touch too bright. All these people make her nervous. Then why bring her to one of the busiest tourist sites in the country? Thomas asked. He couldn't stay quiet anymore. Meghan's eyes snapped to him, cold and sharp. The pleasant mask slipped for just a second, revealing something dark underneath. I don't appreciate being interrogated by security guards. We've done absolutely nothing wrong. Nobody's saying you have, Rachel countered smoothly. But we do need to verify some information. Standard procedure when someone previously noted in our security system returns to royal grounds. The color drained from Meghan's face. She realized they'd identified her. They knew who she was. Her hand fumbled toward her purse, reaching for something. Identification. Maybe. Or her phone to call someone. But the little girl was faster. While Meghan's attention was split, the child reached into the pocket of her dress. Her tiny fingers trembled as they pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. She held it out toward Rachel, using her own body to shield the movement from Meghan's view. Rachel's eyes widened slightly. She took the paper carefully, palming it without looking at it. Thank you, sweetheart, she whispered. Meghan hadn't noticed. She was too busy pulling out her phone, her face flushed with anger and something else. Panic, maybe? Rachel stood up, paper burning in her closed hand. Whatever was written on it, the little girl had risked everything to pass it along. Rachel kept her expression neutral, the folded paper hidden in her palm. Meghan was scrolling through her phone now, her face tight with controlled rage. "I'm calling my solicitor!" Meghan announced loudly. "This is harassment. You're absolutely free to do that," Rachel replied calmly. "But first, we need to see identification for both you and the child. Standard security protocol." Meghan's finger hovered over her phone screen. Her eyes darted between the guards surrounding her. She was trapped, and she knew it. Making a scene would only draw more attention. Refusing to cooperate would raise more questions. "Fine," she said through clenched teeth. She dug through her purse and produced a driver's license, slapping it into Rachel's outstretched hand. Rachel examined it carefully. Meghan Louise Harlow. Address in London. Everything appeared legitimate. She handed it to Thomas, who photographed it with his phone for the security database. "An identification for your daughter?" Rachel asked. "She doesn't have any. She's 4 years old." Meghan's voice was sharp now, the pleasant facade completely gone. "Birth certificate. Any documentation?" "Not with me." "Why would I carry that around?" Rachel nodded slowly. "What's her name?" Meghan hesitated. Just for a second. But Thomas caught it. So did Rachel. "Charlotte," Meghan finally said. "Her name is Charlotte." The words hung in the air like poison. Several tourists who'd been watching exchanged shocked glances. One woman actually gasped. Thomas felt anger rising in his chest. This woman had named her daughter Charlotte, dressed her like Princess Charlotte, trained her to move and pose like Princess Charlotte. This wasn't admiration anymore. This was obsession taken to a dangerous extreme. Rachel's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice professional. "Charlotte what? What's her full name?" "Charlotte Rose Harlow." Meghan crossed her arms defensively. "It's a common name. I'm allowed to name my daughter whatever I want." "Of course you are," Rachel agreed. "When was she born?" Another hesitation. Meghan's eyes flickered to the child, then back to Rachel. "May 15th, 2021. Thomas did the math instantly. Princess Charlotte had been born on May 2nd, 2015. This child, if Meghan was telling the truth about her age, would have been born almost exactly 6 years after the princess. Close enough to create the illusion of being the same age in photographs. If angles and clothing were carefully chosen, Rachel carefully unfolded the small piece of paper the girl had passed her, keeping it low and out of Meghan's line of sight. Thomas shifted slightly to block Meghan's view. The paper contained 6 words, written in shaky, unpracticed letters. "Not my mommy." Rachel's blood ran cold. She glanced at Thomas and gave the smallest nod. He understood immediately. This had just escalated from a security concern to a potential child welfare emergency. "Ms. Harlow," Rachel said carefully, "we're going to need you to come with us to the security office. Just for a few minutes. We need to complete our report." "Absolutely not," Meghan snapped. "You have no right to detain me. We're not detaining you. We're asking for your cooperation in a security matter. If you refuse, we'll have no choice but to contact the Metropolitan Police to continue this conversation." Meghan's face flushed red. She looked around at the crowd, watching them. Phones were definitely recording now. This was becoming a sin, exactly what she'd wanted to avoid. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. But she grabbed the little girl's hand again, gripping it tightly. "Fine, let's get this over with." They walked toward the security office, a small building just inside the castle grounds. Thomas led the way. Rachel stayed close to Meghan and the child. 2 more guards followed behind, creating a secure perimeter. The little girl walked silently, her eyes fixed on the ground. She hadn't spoken a single word since they'd stopped her. Not one sound. Thomas glanced back at her. She was trembling now, subtle shakes running through her small body. Whether from fear or cold or both, he couldn't tell. Inside the security office, Rachel gestured to 2 chairs. "Please, have a seat." Meghan sat down stiffly, pulling the girl onto her lap possessively. The child sat rigid, her back straight, hands folded. Even now, even terrified, she maintained that trained posture. Rachel sat across from them. Thomas stood by the door. Another guard moved to a computer station, already pulling up files. Miss Harlow, Rachel began. Our records show you've been noted at royal events and properties multiple times over the past year, including a garden party at Buckingham Palace last June where you were asked to leave. Meghan's eyes narrowed. I wasn't doing anything wrong. You were photographing the royal children extensively. Security became concerned. I'm a photographer. It's what I do. You're listed as a financial consultant in our database, Thomas interjected. Meghan's face reddened again. Photography is my hobby. Rachel leaned forward slightly. Ms. Harlow, I need to ask you directly. Is this child your biological daughter? The question hung in the air like a blade. Meghan's grip on the girl tightened. The child made a small sound barely audible, but unmistakably a whimper of pain. How dare you, Meghan whispered, her voice shaking with rage. How dare you question whether she's mine? Then you'll have no problem providing proof, Rachel said calmly. Birth certificate. Medical records. Anything that establishes legal guardianship. Meghan stood abruptly, lifting the child with her. We're leaving now. Thomas stepped in front of the door. I'm afraid we can't allow that, Rachel said quietly. Not until we verify the child's welfare and your legal relationship to her. Meghan's face went white, then red, then white again. She realized, finally, that she wasn't getting out of this room without answering questions. And the little girl named Charlotte, who might not be Charlotte at all, began to cry. The sound of the child's crying filled the small office. Quiet, restrained sobs, the kind that come from someone who's learned that loud crying brings punishment. Meghan's hand moved to cover the girl's mouth. Charlotte, stop that right now. But Rachel was faster. She stood and moved between them and the door. Ms. Harlow, please don't touch her face. She's my daughter. I'll comfort her however I see fit. Covering a crying child's mouth isn't comfort, Thomas said firmly. Step back, please. Meghan's eyes blazed with fury, but she lowered her hand. The little girl continued crying, her small body shaking with each breath. She didn't reach for Meghan, didn't bury her face in her shoulder, didn't seek comfort at all. She just stood there, crying alone despite being held. Rachel crouched down to the child's level again. Sweetheart, can you tell me your name? Your real name? The girl's crying hitched. She looked at Rachel with wide, terrified eyes. Her mouth opened. Don't you dare, Meghan snapped at her. Don't say another word. Miss Harlow, I'm warning you. Do not intimidate this child, Rachel said, her voice sharp now. Thomas, please contact the Metropolitan Police. Request a child protection officer immediately. Thomas pulled out his phone and stepped into the corner, speaking in low, urgent tones. Meghan's face crumpled. The rage transformed into something else. Desperation you don't understand. You're ruining everything. She's happy. I've given her everything. She's special. She's terrified, Rachel interrupted. Look at her, Ms. Harlow really look at her, but Meghan wouldn't, or couldn't. Her eyes were glazed over, focused on something only she could see. I saved her. When no one else wanted her, I took her. I made her special. I made her important. The words sent chills through everyone in the room. The guard at the computer station looked up sharply. Officer Chen, I've got something. Rachel moved to the screen while keeping Meghan in her peripheral vision. The guard pointed to a missing person report from 18 months ago. A girl named Emma Davies had vanished from a shopping center in Manchester. Mother turned away for 30 seconds. Child gone. The photograph on the screen showed a smiling toddler with light brown hair and blue eyes. The same eyes looking up at them now, filled with tears. Rachel's hands clenched into fists. She forced herself to stay calm. Thomas, expedite that call. Tell them we have a potential match to a missing child case. Meghan heard it. Her face went from desperate to panicked. No, you've got it wrong. She's mine. She's always been mine. I'm her mother. I'm the only mother she's ever known. Her name is Emma, Rachel said quietly, looking at the little girl. Emma Davies. She was taken from her family 18 months ago. The child's crying intensified. Hearing her real name seemed to crack something inside her, memories perhaps, or just the relief of being seen, of being found. Say your name, sweetheart, Rachel encouraged gently. Can you tell me your name? The little girl's voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from crying and disuse. Emma, that's right, dear Emma. Rachel felt tears burning her own eyes, but held them back. You're Emma Davies, and we're going to take you home. Meghan lunged forward. Thomas caught her immediately, restraining her arms behind her back. She fought against him, screaming, She's mine. You can't take her. I made her perfect. I gave her a better life. Her real mother didn't even watch her properly. She doesn't deserve her. The truth poured out in a torrent of rage and delusion. Years of obsession, of planning, of watching the royal family until fantasy and reality blurred beyond recognition. Thomas held Meghan firmly as another guard moved to assist. She was still screaming, still fighting, completely unraveling. Rachel lifted Emma away from the chaos, carrying her to the far corner of the office. The child wrapped her arms around Rachel's neck and held on like she was drowning. You're safe now, Rachel whispered. I promise you're safe. Within minutes, police sirens echoed outside. Car doors slammed. Voices shouted commands. The Metropolitan Police had arrived with child protection officers. A kind-faced woman in plain clothes entered the office. Detective Sarah Mills, specialized in child abduction cases. She'd been working the Emma Davies case since the beginning. Her eyes found Emma immediately. She gasped, tears streaming down her face without shame. Oh my God, Emma Davies. That's her. That's definitely her. Sarah approached slowly, not wanting to frighten the child further. Hello, Emma. My name is Sarah. I'm a police officer. I've been looking for you for a very long time. Emma lifted her head from Rachel's shoulder. My mummy, she asked, her voice cracking with hope and fear. Your mummy has been looking for you every single day, Sarah said, smiling through her tears. She never stopped, not once. She's been waiting for you. She didn't leave me? Emma asked. And the question broke everyone's heart. No, sweetheart. She would never leave you. Never. Sarah reached out her hand. Would you like to go see her? She's waiting for you. Emma looked at Rachel, then at Sarah, then at the screaming woman being restrained and handcuffed by police officers. Meghan was still shouting about how Emma was hers, how she'd made her special, how she'd saved her. Emma's small hand reached out and took Sarah's. I want my real mummy, she whispered. I want to go home. Behind them, Meghan Harlow collapsed to her knees, still ranting, still refusing to accept reality, even as it crashed down around her. Officers lifted her to her feet and began reading her rights. Thomas watched them take her away. 7 years he'd stood guard at Windsor Castle. 7 years of routine and protocol. He'd never forget this day. Never forget those terrified eyes. And never forget the moment a little girl named Emma found her voice again. The police station in central London was chaos. Officers rushed between rooms. Phones rang constantly. Media vans were already gathering outside. Having caught wind of a major break in the Emma Davies case, Detective Sarah Mills sat in a quiet room with Emma, who was wrapped in a soft blanket and holding a cup of warm chocolate. A child psychologist sat nearby, observing gently, making notes. Emma, can you tell me about the lady who took you? Sarah asked softly. You don't have to if you're not ready, but it would help us understand what happened. Emma stared into her cup. Her voice was small, but clearer now than it had been at Windsor. She said my mummy didn't want me anymore. She said I was special. She said she'd make me a princess. Sarah's heart clenched. Did she hurt you? Emma nodded slowly. When I didn't stand right, when I didn't smile right, when I said my real name, she touched her arm, pulling back the sleeve to reveal small, faded bruises in the shape of fingerprints. The psychologist's pen stopped moving. Sarah fought to keep her face calm, professional, even as rage burned in her chest. You were very brave to give that note to Officer Rachel, Sarah said. How did you write it? I found a pen in her purse. I practiced the letters when she was sleeping. I didn't know when I'd get to give it to someone. Emma looked up with those heartbreaking blue eyes. Is my mummy really waiting for me? She is, sweetheart. She's in another room right now. She's been so worried about you. Down the hall, in a separate room, Catherine Davies sat with her husband, Michael. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She'd been called to the station an hour ago, but still didn't quite believe it. 18 months of searching. 18 months of flyers, appeals, sleepless nights, and unanswered prayers. And now they were telling her Emma was alive. Emma was here. The door opened. Detective Mills entered with a gentle smile. "Mrs. Davies, Michael, are you ready?" Catherine couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears already streaming down her face. Michael gripped her hand tightly, his own eyes red. "She's been through a trauma," Sarah explained quietly. "She might seem different. She might not run to you immediately. Just let her set the pace, okay?" "I don't care," Catherine whispered. "I don't care if she doesn't remember me. I don't care what it takes. I just need to see her. I need to hold my baby." Sarah opened the door wider. Emma stood in the hallway, holding the psychologist's hand. She still wore that navy dress, the one Meghan had made her wear. But the bow was gone from her hair. Her face had been washed. She looked small and fragile and completely exhausted. Catherine froze. For one horrible second, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This was the moment she'd imagined 10,000 times. And now that it was real, her body wouldn't respond. Then Emma saw her. The little girl's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened in a small gasp. "Mummy." That one word broke the spell. Catherine dropped to her knees, arms open. "Emma. Oh my God, Emma." Emma ran. Not the careful, measured steps she'd been trained to take. Not the princess walk. Just a child running to her mother. Clumsy and desperate and real, she crashed into Catherine's arms, and Catherine caught her. Holding her so tightly it might have hurt if Emma hadn't been holding on just as fiercely. Both of them were sobbing. Michael wrapped his arms around them both, his face buried in his daughter's hair, his shoulders shaking. "I thought you didn't want me," Emma cried. "She said you left me. She said you were glad I was gone." "Never," Catherine sobbed. "Never, never, never. I looked for you every single day. Every single hour. I never stopped. I would never stop. I tried to remember you. I tried so hard. But she kept saying I was Charlotte. She kept making me forget." "You didn't forget," Catherine whispered fiercely. "You're here. You remembered enough to ask for help. You're so brave, baby. You're the bravest girl in the whole world." Michael was crying too hard to speak. He just held them both, one hand on Emma's back, one on Catherine's shoulder. Keeping them anchored, keeping them together, the psychologist stood in the corner, wiping her own eyes. Sarah Mills had turned away, giving the family privacy in their reunion. Even hardened detectives cried sometimes. After several minutes, Emma pulled back slightly to look at her mother's face. "Am I really Emma? Not Charlotte?" "You're Emma Rose Davies," Catherine said, touching her daughter's face like she still couldn't believe she was real. "You've always been Emma? Always." "The lady cut my hair," Emma said sadly. "She made it look like the princess's hair." "Hair grows back," Catherine assured her, kissing her forehead. "And you're more beautiful than any princess ever was." Emma touched her mother's face, exploring her features like she was memorizing them, or remembering them. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you too, baby. So, so much." Down in the holding cells, Meghan Harlow sat alone in a bare room. She'd stopped screaming an hour ago. Now she just stared at the wall, rocking slowly back and forth, muttering under her breath. She was mine. I made her special. She was mine. Psychiatrists had been called to evaluate her mental state. Police were building their case: kidnapping, child abuse, false imprisonment. She'd never see freedom again. But in her mind, she was still at Windsor Castle, still photographing her daughter, still living in the fantasy she'd constructed. Upstairs, Detective Mills briefed her superintendent on the case details. The investigation into how Meghan had managed to take Emma from the shopping center, how she'd evaded detection for 18 months, how many people she'd told that Charlotte was her daughter, how no one had questioned it enough to report it. She homeschooled her, Sarah explained. Never took her to doctors. Never registered her anywhere official. Kept her isolated except for these photo expeditions to royal sites. How did no one notice? The superintendent asked, baffled. People see what they expect to see, Sarah replied. A well-dressed woman with a well-dressed child. They looked like they belonged together. Meghan was smart enough to keep her story vagrant move, new to the area, that sort of thing. She never stayed anywhere long enough for people to ask too many questions. What broke her cover? A royal guard who trusted his instincts, Sarah said. Thomas Bennett. If he hadn't noticed something was wrong, hadn't pushed for investigation, Emma might have disappeared for good. Back in the reunion room, Emma had fallen asleep in her mother's arms. Exhausted by emotion and trauma and relief, Catherine sat on the floor, unwilling to move, holding her daughter and breathing. Michael sat beside them, one hand on Emma's back, feeling her breathe. Proof she was alive. Proof she was here. Proof their nightmare was finally over. 3 months later, Thomas Bennett stood at his post at Windsor Castle. The morning was cold and crisp, autumn giving way to winter. Tourists bundled in coats and scarves moved through the courtyard, taking photos, following their guides. Everything looked normal. But Thomas saw things differently now. He watched every adult with a child more carefully, noticed body language, looked for signs of fear or control. His commanding officer had commended him for his actions that day, but Thomas didn't feel like a hero. He just felt grateful he'd trusted his instincts. A car pulled up to the security gate. Thomas recognized it immediately, Detective Mills's vehicle. She stepped out, followed by a familiar couple, Catherine and Michael Davies, and between them, holding both their hands, was Emma. She looked different now. Her hair had been cut into a short, bouncy style, nothing like Princess Charlotte's. She wore bright pink sneakers, jeans with flowers embroidered on them, and a puffy purple jacket. She looked like herself. Like a normal, happy 4-year-old, Rachel Chen appeared at Thomas's side. "They wanted to come thank you in person," she said quietly. I cleared it with command. Thomas felt his throat tighten. He nodded and stepped down from his post as the family approached. Catherine Davies looked healthier than she had in the police station color in her face, light in her eyes. She smiled as they came closer. "Guard Bennett." "Yes, ma'am." Thomas's voice was thick with emotion he was trying to control. "Thank you," Catherine said simply. "Thank you for seeing her." "For not looking away?" Thomas crouched down to Emma's level. "Hello, Emma. Do you remember me?" Emma nodded, suddenly shy. But it was real shyness now, not the controlled silence from before. "You're the guard who helped me." "I am." "How are you doing?" "Better," Emma said. She looked up at her mother, then back at Thomas. "I'm going to therapy. And I have a new bed with princesses on it, but not real princesses. Cartoon ones." Thomas smiled. "That sounds wonderful. Mommy says I don't have to be a princess. I can just be me. Being you is the best thing you can be," Thomas assured her. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It had been carefully colored with crayons, a drawing of Windsor Castle, stick figures in front of it. "I made this for you," she said. "That's you, and that's Officer Rachel, and that's me. You saved me." Thomas took the drawing with careful hands. "Thank you, Emma. I'll keep this forever." Michael Davies shook Thomas's hand firmly. "You gave us our daughter back?" "There aren't words for what that means." Rachel stepped forward then, and Emma immediately brightened. "Rachel?" She let go of her parents' hands and hugged Rachel's legs. Rachel picked her up, spinning her gently. "Look at you. You look so happy," Rachel said, her voice warm. "I am happy. I'm going back to school soon. Real school, with other kids." "That's brilliant," Rachel said. "You're going to do wonderfully." They talked for a few more minutes, sharing updates. Emma's psychological evaluations were showing good progress. The nightmares were becoming less frequent. She was remembering more about her life before the abduction and learning to separate real memories from the false ones Meghan had tried to implant. Catherine told them about the trial. Meghan Harlow had been deemed mentally unfit to stand trial immediately and was undergoing psychiatric evaluation in a secure facility. Eventually, she'd face justice. But for now, she was locked away where she couldn't hurt anyone else. "Has Emma asked about her?" Thomas asked quietly. Catherine's face grew sad. Once she asked why the lady took her. I told her the truth, that the lady was very sick in her mind and didn't understand what she was doing was wrong. Emma seems to accept that. She's remarkable, Thomas said, watching Emma show Rachel all the features of her new shoes. She is, Catherine agreed. She's been through hell, but she's fighting her way back. Therapy helps. Love helps. Being home helps. Before they left, Emma turned to Thomas one more time. Will you be here next time we visit? I will, Thomas promised. I'm here most days? Good, I want to show you my school pictures when I get them. I'd love to see them. The family left, walking back to their car. Emma skipped between her parents, swinging their hands, talking excitedly about something. Just a normal little girl with her parents? Exactly as it should be. Rachel stood beside Thomas, watching them go. That could have ended very differently, she said quietly. I know, Thomas replied. I think about that every day. You trusted your gut. That's what made the difference. We both did. Rachel smiled. We make a good team, Bennett. They returned to their posts. The day continued, tourists coming and going, photos being taken, guards standing watch. But something had shifted in Thomas. He'd always taken his job seriously. But now, he understood its weight differently. He wasn't just guarding buildings and gates. He was protecting people. Sometimes in ways he couldn't predict. His eyes scanned the crowd. A woman with a child. A man taking photos. A group of teenagers laughing. Everything looked normal, but Thomas would keep watching. Keep noticing. Keep trusting his instincts. Because somewhere in that crowd might be another Emma. Another child who needed someone to see. Someone to care. Someone to act. And Thomas Bennett would be ready. The drawing Emma had given him was safely tucked into his jacket pocket. He'd frame it when he got home. Put it somewhere he'd see it every day. A reminder that every person who passed through these gates was someone's daughter, someone's son, someone's whole world, and protecting them was the most important job he'd ever have. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across Windsor Castle's ancient stones. Thomas stood tall at his post, eyes alert, heart engaged, ready for whatever came next. Because being a guardian wasn't. It's just about standing watch. It was about truly seeing the people you were sworn to protect. And sometimes, that made all the difference.